This is SSN
Story Studio Network.
Welcome to the Fatigue Fixer podcast. Ever wonder why it feels like the entire sisterhood is just so darn exhausted? We're diving deep into everything from those sneaky physical culprits, think iron levels, playing hide and seek, or a moody thyroid, to the mental weights of always being on and that sneaky urge to please everyone. And let's not forget society's oh-so-high bar that we're tirelessly trying to reach. I'm Dr. Sarah Vedbonkar, your guide on this energy-finding mission. As a naturopathic doctor with over a decade of experience, I've been piecing together the fatigue puzzle, asking why so many incredible women around me, including my patients, often feel like they're running on empty. So pull up a chair or perhaps pop in your headphones and head out for a walk. Together we'll uncover those hidden, surprising, and sometimes even downright unexpected reasons behind that lingering tiredness. Ready to recharge those batteries? All right, deep breath. Let's jump into today's insightful episode. Today we're going to talk about one of the most powerful things a woman can do to fix her fatigue. And that really starts by listening to your body. And I'm not talking about taking an Advil when you get a headache. I mean really cultivating a deep, trusting, and strong bond with your body so that you can use it to help guide you, make better decisions, and ultimately enjoy more energy and better health. Because here's the thing. Most of the women that I see in my practice and most of the women I know, and myself included, we live in our heads. And we do that because the society we live in is very cerebral. It rewards thinking and decision making. And we tend to always be thinking about what's coming up next or what happened and what we said or didn't say, what we need to do, our never-ending to-do list. And part of what happens when we are constantly living in our heads is that we are ignoring our bodies. And when we ignore our bodies, they talk louder and louder because they are trying to get our attention. And what I hope you're going to walk away with today is understanding that when you ignore your body, it's making you more tired and causing more unhappiness and health issues. So this is the one where you hear your body speak. And I'm going to share with you the story of when I first realized how incredibly smart and powerful our bodies can be, and how listening to my body unleashed a whole new level of confidence and energy. So I want to take you back to the summer of 2020. It was the first pandemic summer. And one of the things that I was doing at that time to keep myself sane was I was going on a lot of walks with a neighbor friend that I had made. And she was a relatively new friend, but it was one of those friendships where you just really hit it off and you skip through all the superficial stuff and you just go real deep into your friendship and talk about real meaningful things. And so on this particular day, we were walking through the forest together, and she was telling me about her training as an actor. So she had been to theater school, and she was telling me about some of the things that they would do there, which is fascinating, by the way. And she made a comment about one of her teachers saying that the lower part of our abdomen, kind of our lower belly, is a swamp. And it's a swamp because that's where we put all the things, all the feelings and emotions and stories and experiences that we don't really want to acknowledge or deal with or feel. We shove them down there. And the second she said that, I had this aha moment, where you have just that deep knowing that comes out of your body and you just realize something that is so true and so profound. And what I realized the moment she said that is that there was a very particular story that I had shoved deep down in my swamp and that it was causing problems. So for years, I had been dealing with chronic bloating. My lower belly was always distended. And what was super interesting to me about my bloating is that it always came with anger. So it wasn't just like, oh, I'm bloated, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. When I got bloated, it triggered this anger in me. And I never understood why the heck I was so angry about this bloating. And so I addressed that bloating how most of us would address bloating, which is to look at my diet. So I did all the nice naturopathic things that I know to do. I cut different foods out. I did a candida cleanse. I went paleo. I did a lot of different things. And all of them would help temporarily, but the bloating always came back. So what had actually been happening is that my body had been trying to get my attention. The bloating was my body's way of saying, look down here and pay attention because there is something in here that you need to look at. And what that was grief. And it was grief specifically around my decision to have an abortion a few years before that. So I had had an unplanned pregnancy. I already had my son. He was 2 years old. And my partner and I decided that our family was complete and that I was going to terminate that pregnancy. And that was, to this day, the hardest decision that I've ever made. And it was made even more difficult because I felt like I was making it alone. I didn't feel supported by my partner through that experience. And I also chose to not share it with the people in my life. I didn't talk to my friends. I didn't talk to my family. So that had been an extremely difficult time. And I carried a lot of grief around that decision. It wasn't regret. I still feel that that was the right decision for me and my family. But because I already had a child, I knew what I was giving up by terminating that pregnancy. And that brought so much grief and so much sadness. And because I hadn't had a real outlet to express that, I had just pushed it down where it felt like kind of safe. Now, I didn't know that that's what I was doing at the time. This is all in hindsight, but this is what I suspect is that because it was so painful to feel that grief, I found a way to kind of suppress it and push it down far enough that I didn't really have to feel it on a daily basis. And so in that moment when she talked about the swamp and she talked about things that we don't want to feel, again, I had this like aha moment of like, what if my bloating is all emotional? What if it's grief? What if it's my body's like super smart, amazing way of getting me again to literally look down and pay attention to what's going on in my gut? And so I made a decision that day that I was going to start to talk about it and that I was going to share my experience as a test. And basically what I was testing is, will my bloating get better if I release this from the swamp and get it out and feel the grief and let it work through my body and then see what happens on the other side? So that's what I did. So probably a month or two later, I decided to speak about it more openly for the first time. And I did that in the context of a women's circle with a group of women that I trusted and I knew very well. And so I shared that story. And the first time I talked about my abortion story, I was shaking, my legs were shaking, my hands were shaking, my heart was beating out of my chest, I was crying. You could tell that that energy had been stored in my body. And when I put words to it, it's like all that kind of stuff that had been bubbling up literally was just being like metabolized and moved through my body. So it was not easy to tell that story. And as you can imagine, abortion can be a very polarizing topic. So there was that piece of me, but I really felt like I needed to share it for my own healing. And what happened that night, number one, is that the women in that circle received my story with such beauty and acceptance. And I get still teary thinking about how lovely they were. And what I also distinctly remember is how I felt after. So I remember after that, I went for a walk and I literally felt like I had lost 30 pounds. There was a heaviness that had been lifted and I felt so light and free. And I was like, okay, there is something here. There is something happening from sharing this like deep, dark secret, essentially, that I'd been keeping for so many years. And so what I want to share with you today is how that way that my body was speaking to me and the way that my body was trying to get my attention through bloating is actually a form of intuition. Because when we hear the word intuition, I think a lot of us think of something that's very like woo-woo, or we think about like mediums or fortune tellers. That's not intuition. Intuition is literally this like deeply built system in our bodies to help keep us safe and alive, number one, but also to help guide us towards whatever is best for us. And so in the past, when I thought about intuition, I thought about it like, oh, being able to like predict something or knowing intuitively, what should I do? And I think what was really made clear to me through this experience is that intuition also is in your body. It's all the different signs and symptoms that your body has as a way of communicating with you. So there's two different ways that we might feel intuitive feelings or sensations, because your body can't talk literally, right? If it could send you an email, it could tell you very clearly, like, Mary, you need to go to bed on time, or Susie, can you please have a glass of water? But it can't do that. So the two ways that our body tries to send us signals and speak with us is through feelings and sensations. The sensations are the more physical things: bloating, headaches, fatigue, joint pain, PMS, right? The body isn't just having those things because something's wrong with it. It's your body's way of telling you that something isn't working. So when we have these, so-called negative symptoms in the body, what's happening is that our body is trying to get us to move away from something that doesn't feel good. That could be a food, it could be a habit, it could be a person, it could be our job. But your body is constantly sending you feedback through these physical sensations and through emotional feelings. So that's things like the anger I was talking about, irritability, joy, frustration, right? Your mood and your sensations and your feelings are all these different ways that your body is trying to tell you, please do less of that when things don't feel good. And yes, this feels good. Please do more of that. So it's constantly sending us this amazing feedback. And the amazing thing about intuition is that it is not happening in our brain, right? It's not our really rational, cerebral part of us. Humans have this amazing prefrontal cortex, right? Which is the front part of our brain behind our forehead that allows us to do critical thinking and make all these amazing decisions. And that's amazing. But intuition is something different. Intuition is your ability to enter a room and know right away that someone in that room isn't good, right? There's something not good about their energy. That's not your brain picking up on that. That's your intuition, which is happening below your conscious. So you're not necessarily able to explain why you feel that way, but you just know. You have a feeling that something is off about this person or this situation. And the bad news is that we, as a general rule, a lot of women have numbed or ignored this part of us. Right? We've probably all had that spidey sense that something didn't feel right. And many, many moons ago, when men started to realize the power of a woman's intuition, they felt threatened by that. They were like, ooh, they have this amazing gift and we don't know, but it can't be good. So what did they do? They shut it down. They made us mistrust ourselves and they made us mistrust each other. And so a lot of us have been taught that intuition is this like secondary type of information, that it's not as good or as powerful as making a brain-based decision, when I would argue that that is completely untrue. There are pieces of information that your body and your intuition can find and bring out that your brain will never pick up on and your brain will never notice. Because in a world of like information overload, we've never had access to more information, right? You can Google, you can chat GPT, you can find the answer to anything you want. But what I would argue is that the answers that most of us are looking for, they're not on Google, they're not on ChatGPT. They're probably not also just in your brain, they're in your body. And the sooner you can start to tap into that level of knowing, the sooner you can hear your body speak, the sooner you're going to start to make decisions that are more aligned with what your body actually wants and needs. And so how this all ties into our fatigue and our health is that our intuition allows us to spend more time living in alignment. And the way that I think about alignment is with this concept of green lights and red lights. So red lights are all the things that you do that when you see them on your calendar, you're like, oh God, I don't want to do that. Or you see that you have to meet with someone and you're like, oh, not them. I don't want to meet with them. Right? It's all the shoulds that we have on our to-do list. Well, I really should do this, or I have to do this. As soon as you hear the word should, I want you to pay attention because it's probably something that came from outside of you. It's probably an expectation that is external, either from your society, your community, your parents, your spouse, whoever it is. So red lights are things that we do that usually we dread. They feel icky and difficult while we're doing them. They're usually the things we like shove to the bottom of our to-do list and then magically run out of time so we can't do them. And they're the things that leave us feeling tired and drained, right? You can probably all think of some red light things that are happening in your life. Email could be one. Certain people in your life could feel like red lights. So red lights, when you feel like that, when you feel like you're slogging through and you're like, everything about this feels terrible, that is because your body is trying to tell you that you are out of alignment, meaning you are doing things or engaging in behaviors that go against your body's wants and needs. Now, that doesn't mean that most of us get to go through life with no red lights. Like, we're all going to have red lights. But what I want you to start to pay attention to is how much time in your day you are spending in that red light energy. Because if most of your day is spent slogging it out for things that other people put on your plate, for activities that feel super hard and frustrating, that is going to drain your energy. And part of why it drains your energy is that your body is constantly trying to guide you towards alignment. And alignment is where you are doing more things that feel like green lights. Green lights are things that you love. They're the things that you see on your calendar and you're like, I cannot wait for that. They're the things that feel easy and you get into a flow state. And while you're doing it, you probably lose track of time. And when you're finished, you feel energized and content and like your cup is full. Those green light activities are your body's way of guiding you towards alignment. That's your body's way of saying, this feels amazing. I love this. This is meeting my needs and my wants. Please do more of this. The more time we can spend in that green light energy, the more energy we put back into our cup, and the more we're able to get the fuel we need so that we can do some of those red light things. Because again, we're probably not going to get rid of all of them. But the gap between your red lights and your green lights is where most of us waste a bunch of energy without even knowing it. Because when you're hanging out in that red light energy and everything feels like resistance, it feels hard and frustrating, and you're like, why do I have to do this? What is the point? Your body is sending you signals, which again is all that frustration and anger and irritability. And maybe there's physical symptoms, right? Maybe you get a headache every time you do something, a specific task, or maybe your back starts to hurt or something. That's your body's way of trying to show you that that thing does not work. And it's also doing all those things because it's trying to pull you back into alignment, which is your green lights. So again, the more energy, the more time you spend in red light, the more energy your body is using trying to pull you back into alignment, trying to pull you back into those green lights. So I call that the energy gap. And it's basically the energy that we waste living out of alignment. And again, living out of alignment is when we are doing things or spending time with people that are not meeting our own needs and our own desires. So how do we start to tap into this? How do we actually start to, number one, hear our intuition? Because here's the thing. If you're walking around with a million things in your head and you're going through all the motions, which again, that's how most of us spend our day because that's the world we live in, you're not going to hear the whispers. Because again, if we go back to the story I shared, the whispers for me were the little bloating. And again, I probably noticed them in the beginning, but when I'm off trying to run my business and raise my son and put healthy food on the table, do I have time to worry about a little bit of bloating? Probably not. So I probably ignored it for longer than I should have. And what happens when you ignore the whispers is they get louder because your body's like, she is not listening. I'm going to have to send a louder message. So now it's not a little bit of bloating, now it's a lot of bloating. And I'm like, well, this is annoying, but I guess I'll try cutting something out and see how it goes, but I don't really have time, move along. So the body's like, all right, she's still not listening. I'm going to send a louder message. And I think that's where they added the anger. They're we're going to make her real bloated and we're going to make her angry about it. And again, it wasn't till the bloating got so uncomfortable and the anger got so uncomfortable that I was like, what is going on? Why am I so bloated? And again, this is the wisdom of the body. My body was doing everything in its power to get my attention because there was something in there, which for me was grief and secrecy, that wasn't serving my body. So my body was like, we need to deal with whatever is percolating in this swamp, whatever is rotting down here. We need to get rid of it, right? Can you see the beauty in that? I literally had a secret grief that was rotting inside of me, and my belly was getting distended and hard and angry as a result. My body was like, look down here, something to see and deal with down here. So the sooner you start to get out of your head and creating these opportunities to listen, and that could be as simple as spending 2 minutes a day with no distractions. You could do it first thing in the morning. Maybe you do it before you go to bed. No phone, no podcast, no nothing, just you and your body, and you check in. And you can I'll literally put my hands on my body and close my eyes and just do a check-in and be like, what's going on? Anything in my body that I need to know about. Anything physical, anything emotional. And what's incredible, and the women who I work with have reported this, When you actually make the time and the space to listen, you're going to be amazed at how much your body is talking to you. It is sending you signals all the time because it's trying to guide you towards the most beautiful version of your life. And the sooner you start listening, the sooner you'll be able to actually decipher and figure out what those messages mean. Because let's face it took me many years to piece together that my bloating was emotional, right? I didn't feel bloated and go, oh, that must be the grief from my abortion. Of course not. It took me time and constant listening to be able to figure out and have that knowing surface in a way that I was able to understand it, and probably also in a time where I was ready to hear that, because I wouldn't have been able to hear that message or decipher or receive it in the same way if it had happened a year or two earlier. I wouldn't have been ready for it. So my body made this beautiful message available to me in a time and a place where I was able to hear it, and it allowed me to take action. So it's so important that we create these small moments and opportunities, ideally on a regular basis, to get out of our heads so that we can hear what our bodies are saying. Because again, you have this like beautiful, innate, basically a GPS. That's how I think of my intuition. My intuition is a GPS trying to steer me away from like traffic jams and accidents. And it's trying to steer me on like the most beautiful route with luscious trees and gardens or whatever you like towards my destination, right? And if you've ever used a GPS, you know that it only starts working when you start moving. One of the biggest misconceptions that I see, and that certainly I have had about intuition, is that it was like kind of like a fortune teller, right? That I could just sit at my desk and know and predict the future of what I would like and what's the best job and what's the best course of action. That's not usually how it works. And certainly some of us, like I am very intuitive, so I often will predict things or have things happen. I'm like, wow, how did I know that? But the way I want you to think about your intuition is like a GPS, which means that you need to take action to start getting feedback, right? It doesn't tell you where to turn until you pull your car out of the driveway. When you're just sitting in the driveway, there's a map, but it's not really guiding you. It's just there. So your intuition is there to guide you when you start taking action. So when you make a decision, when you spend time with somebody, your intuition and your body are going to start giving you feedback, right? And that feedback might be like, I feel so calm and excited and like my cup is full. That's your body saying, whoever you're hanging out with, like, let's hang out with them more. This feels really nice. Versus hanging out with someone else where you're like, my heart is racing. I feel like I can't say what I really want to say. I'm feeling super frustrated or anxious, and I leave there and I'm drained for the rest of the day. That's your intuition saying, can we maybe spend a little bit less time with that person, or can we change how we interact with that person? Because whatever's happening right now, that's not feeling so good. So this is such a powerful tool to help you waste less energy, basically to spend more time doing the things that fill your cup and give you energy and make you feel amazing, and to spend less time doing the things that are feeling like a slog, super frustrating, and draining you. Because what happens when we ignore or dismiss our intuition is that we pay a price. And that price, I would argue, is our energy, it's our happiness, it's our well-being, and it could also be our safety, right? If you think about your intuition, a big part of it was a built-in safety mechanism. That if you were ever in a position where your life is in danger, your body would make you feel that very quickly so that you can get the hell out of there. So this is a deeply innate thing that we've had for eons that has helped us survive and thrive. However, most of us were also taught that what's really important in life is to be nice. and to not hurt people's feelings and to not make people upset. And so what that has caused is that a lot of us ignore or suppress our intuition because we might have had that spidey sense feeling when we walk into a room where we're like, something's not good here. But if our conditioning to be nice was stronger than our fear, we stayed in that room because we didn't want to upset anybody by leaving. We didn't want to make a scene. We didn't want to look rude. So we stayed. And so our intuition was like, something bad is here, but she's not moving. I'm very confused. What is she doing? And that is a huge part of what creates a disconnect, is when our intuition gives us a strong, clear message and we ignore it. And now that doesn't mean that your whole life has to be dictated by your intuition. But I think the more time you can spend listening and honoring what your body wants, the stronger that language becomes and the more you can really hear your body speak. So I want you to leave you today with the thought that your body wants to be healthy. And your body is constantly working for you, not against you. And I know it sometimes feels like it's working against you because it's doing things that don't feel good, right? Maybe you have physical symptoms, maybe you have mental emotional symptoms that don't feel good. But that is your body's way of trying to guide you. So I want to invite you, instead of feeling frustrated when you feel like your body is doing things that don't feel good, instead of feeling frustrated, what if we got curious? What if we started to ask things like, why do I feel so angry? Why am I so bloated? Why am I so PMSy? Why is this happening? I wonder what my body is trying to tell me. That's a very different way to approach it than, I'm PMSing again. This is so annoying. I hate my cycle. I hate being a woman. I hate my hormones. What is my PMS trying to tell me? Oh, I think it's trying to tell me that I need to ask for more help when I'm PMSing because everything feels hard. Or I need to go to bed earlier and I need to not have that glass of wine because it's making me feel like shit. So curiosity is such a beautiful way to approach some of these signals because, again, the more curious you become and the more you listen, the sooner you'll be able to hear and, again, understand and decipher what these different messages are. Because your body is, again, it's constantly sending you feedback about what it likes and what it doesn't like. And this beautiful innate wisdom is ultimately trying to guide you towards the most beautiful version of your life. And a lot of time, it's not going to make sense. And again, that's because your intuition is not coming from your rational brain. It's coming from this subconscious, deep inner knowing and wisdom that a lot of times it's going to look a bit crazy. You might look like you're making a really weird or bad decision. It might also feel very scary. So just because something is intuitive and is the right decision doesn't mean it feels good or easy. And I remember that specifically. So when I was, making this decision about whether to continue with the pregnancy, I went to therapy, and I'll never forget the therapist saying that even if you're making the right decision, it doesn't mean it feels good or easy. So again, intuition isn't this like la la land where everything is unicorn and rainbows. It might mean making some really difficult decisions. It might mean doing things that feel really uncomfortable. It might mean feeling things that don't feel good like I had to do. I had to allow that grief to come out of my swamp, to move through my body. It did not feel good. It didn't feel good for the first many times that I told this story. But now, because I let it come out of me and I let it be felt, I can sit here and talk with you about this without having a huge physical response. There's still emotion attached to it because I'll always have a little bit of grief and sadness about it, but it doesn't carry the same weight that it did when I was trying to keep it all in and ignoring the signals that my body was sending me. So, if you have something in your body or your mood that just keeps showing up, It might be your body's way of trying to get your attention and shine a light on some of those dark corners where we haven't bothered to explore or we've been too scared to peek into. And I want to invite you to start to have a look in those dark corners, because even though things probably are going to feel yucky and that swamp is a nasty place, it's going to feel so much better if you can hang out in those spots, feel what needs to be felt, and ultimately allow those things to be released from your body. So my invitation to you this week is that the next time your body speaks, listen. It is so wise. It is just really trying to help and guide you. And again, one of the most beautiful things I think you can do for your health and your energy is to let your body speak and to listen when it does. Thank you for tuning in. I hope this episode has you coming away with maybe a different perspective on intuition and a different perspective on your symptoms, because again, they're not there to piss you off. They're there to help guide you. Thanks for spending your precious time with me today. Remember, it takes a village or a podcast community to really make a dent in this fatigue epidemic. If today's episode resonated with you, do me a favor. Share it with a friend or two, and if you have a second, drop us that shiny 5-star review. It means so much to me. If you're leaving today's episode ready to listen when your body speaks and let her guide you towards more energy, then I'm here to help you get started. I love watching women's energy shift when they realize how incredibly powerful and wise our bodies are. That's why I created Effortless Energy, where tired and busy women with never-ending to-do lists learn how to work with their body to unlock more energy, calm, and confidence by doing less, not more. And this month is a great time to join us because I'm offering special discount pricing on this monthly membership as part of my Black Friday sale. For 5 days starting on November 20th, I'll be offering a special deal of the day, which allows you to join Effortless Energy for just $37 a month. You can see all 5 deals of the day and learn more about Effortless Energy by visiting www.fatiguefixer.ca/sale. Happy shopping, and I'll see you right back here in 2 weeks. Bye!